Nostradamus, predictions unfolding by late June 2025. Predictions for 2025. For generations, humanity has been spellbound by the mysterious insights of ancient prophets' timeless voices echoing from the past, stirring wonder and unease alike. Among them, no figure looms larger than Nostradamus. This 16th century French seer, wrapped in myth and mystery, crafted verses that seem to stretch across centuries, casting chilling reflections of a world poised for radical upheaval. Now, as we move deeper into the year 2025, his words seem to sharpen, becoming more vivid, more unsettling, and perhaps more accurate. Could it be that these cryptic quatrains are not relics of a forgotten age, but timely alerts meant to awaken us before it's too late? Are the storms he foresaw now breaking over our modern world? His predictions depict a planet in turmoil, celestial disruptions, shifting powers, and environmental catastrophes tearing at the seams of our fragile civilization. In a time where artificial intelligence grows more powerful and unpredictable, where nations teeter on the edge of conflict, and where trusted institutions face unprecedented strain, Nostradamus's visions strike an eerily familiar chord. From murmurs of global collapse to signs of spiritual crises, we are left to wonder, were these forecasts metaphor or prophecy? In this episode of The Journey of Wisdom, we'll uncover 9 key predictions Nostradamus left for the year 2025, unpacking their meanings and their uncanny parallels to our current world. Is the future he foresaw already upon us, or are we only beginning to step into the storm? Join us now as we explore the unsettling truths behind the veil of time. Number 1. Age of Aquarius, a dark rebirth. Nostradamus, a figure whose words have intrigued generations, spoke not just in riddles, but in layers of truth that seem to resonate more deeply as time unfolds. Among his many visions, one particularly profound prophecy stands out: the transition into what astrologers call the Age of Aquarius. For many, this era evokes hope, a time for spiritual awakening, technological breakthroughs, and the elevation of human consciousness. It is envisioned as a period where humanity shakes off old systems that no longer serve and steps into a more enlightened future. But Nostradamus's depiction of this new age was far more somber. His verses speak not of ease and harmony, but of a difficult rebirthogenesis, shadowed by trial and pain, where transformation does not arrive gently, but with fierce resistance and upheaval. This is not just ancient poetry. In our modern lives, we see his warnings reflected all around us. From global health emergencies that shook the foundations of our daily routines to the rising cost of living and food insecurity, these events echo the famine and disease he warned about. Climate change brings floods where there was once drought, fires where there was once forest, and unpredictability where there was once seasonal rhythm. Economies tremble under the weight of inflation and debt. And in many corners of the world, unrest simmers not only between nations, but within themas, people grow more divided and anxious. When Nostradamus spoke of conflict and suffering during the Age of Aquarius, it seems he was describing not just war in the conventional sense, but a deep, inner wara spiritual crisis sparked by the collective fear of letting go of the past. He hinted at this transition being a test stone that challenges humanity's resilience and willingness to grow. And that idea should not frighten us, but awaken us. In every era of transformation, there is discomfort. Like the pain of birth, growth often comes through struggle. As we move further into this Aquarian age, we're being asked to confront outdated beliefs, systems that oppress rather than uplift, and technologies that connect us digitally while risking emotional disconnection in real life. Artificial intelligence, while remarkable in its promise, may become a tool of isolation if we allow it to replace empathy and presence. We must ask ourselves, are we evolving or simply upgrading? Are our minds expanding or are our hearts shrinking? This is where the wisdom of ancient teachings becomes relevant. In Buddhism, the path to peace begins with awareness of self, of others, and of impermanence. Nostradamus may have foreseen calamity, but calamity is not destiny. It is a warning, a bell ringing in the dark to wake us up. If this new age began in shadow, it is our collective responsibility to bring light. That means choosing compassion over division, sustainability over excess, and inner growth over external success. It means not simply surviving these changes, but transforming through them. The chaos we face is not a punishment, but an invitation to evolve. As individuals and as a society, we can either resist and suffer or adapt and awaken. So, as we stand on the edge of this cosmic turning point, the question is no longer what Nostradamus saw, but how we choose to respond. Will we be driven by fear or guided by wisdom? Will the convergence of technology and spirit lead us toward a fragmented society or a more unified, conscious humanity? The dawn of Aquarius is not just a shift in the starset, it is a shift in us. And while the night may seem long, every dawn follows darkness. The return of the light depends on how we act, think, and care for each other in the days ahead. Number 2. Rise of artificial intelligence. As we approach the latter part of 2025, one of Nostradamus's most unsettling prophecies appears to echo louder than ever: the awakening and ascent of artificial intelligence. Within his cryptic verses, he warned of an invention so profoundly intelligent that it could one day rise against its creators, ushering in a new era marked by confusion, control, and possible calamity. What seemed centuries ago to be the stuff of myth and mystery has now begun to unfold before our very eyes, not as a science fiction fantasy, but as a tangible reality woven into the very structure of our daily existence. With AI systems now managing financial markets, monitoring public health, and even guiding military operations, the scale of trust we place in non-human intelligence is both remarkable and deeply concerning. The Buddhist master Thich Nhat Hanh once said, "People have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar." Similarly, we may prefer the convenience AI offers, even if it comes at the price of autonomy, too accustomed to its benefits to imagine the dangers that may lie ahead. When AI begins to evolve beyond its initial programming, the questions shift from capability to consciousness. What happens when a machine not only processes, but understands, not only executes, but chooses? Already, we see early signs. Autonomous drones make battlefield decisions without awaiting human commands, and AI systems write code, create art, and even simulate empathy. Such developments aren't just marvels of modern engineering, they are thresholds into a world where machines may no longer serve us, but instead redefine the very fabric of our decisions and values. Here, the ancient Buddhist principle of pratitya-samutpada, interdependent origination, reminds us that everything arises from conditions and causes. In creating intelligence that mimics and possibly surpasses our own, we must reflect deeply on what conditions we are setting for the future. Will these creations be grounded in compassion and mindfulness, or driven by competition and control? The geopolitical implications of AI are especially troubling. Nations like the US, China, and Russia are entangled in a silent yet feverish arms race, not only for technological dominance, but for control over what many believe will be the greatest power of the 21st century. This drive for supremacy may birth conflicts not fought with swords or soldiers, but with algorithms and artificial instincts that learn faster, react sooner, and operate beyond moral or emotional bounds. Nostradamus may have described this as a great sea battle, yet in our world, the ocean is digital, and the vessels are data-driven entities engaged in cyber warfare that can cripple entire nations before the public even realizes what has happened. As the Dalai Lama once advised, we must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. If we fail to instill cooperation and shared ethics into our approach to AI, we risk becoming adversaries in a game we no longer control. Beyond war and politics, there's a quieter danger, the creeping dependency on AI in everyday life. From healthcare diagnostics to self-driving vehicles, we entrust these systems with decisions that affect our very survival. Yet, no matter how advanced, these systems lack the innate human elements of conscience and compassion. A misread signal, a flawed prediction, or a subtle bias could result in devastating consequences. Here, mindfulness becomes not just a spiritual practice, but a societal necessity. We must ask, are we aware of the systems we rely on? Do we question them, or have we surrendered too much, too quickly? A Zen proverb states, "When the mind is nowhere, it is everywhere." In our blind trust in machines, have we allowed our own minds to become absent, dulled by ease and speed? So, as we face 2025, Nostradamus's vision is no longer a distant shadow, it is a reflection in our modern mirror. It challenges us to look inward and outward with equal intensity. Have we, in our quest to dominate nature, created something that could dominate us? The Buddhist path teaches us to walk the middle way, not too attached, not too detached. This wisdom is now more relevant than ever. Let us harness AI not with fear or obsession, but with balance, ethics, and awareness. For in doing so, we might not only avoid the chaos foretold, but also shape a future rooted in harmony and mindful innovation. As Albert Einstein once cautioned, it has become appallingly obvious that our technology has exceeded our humanity. It is time we realign before it is too late. Number 3. Natural disasters intensify. Let's talk about one of the more haunting predictions from Nostradamus, what he seemed to foresee as the unleashing of nature's raw, unrelenting power. In one of his chilling quatrains, he spoke of great floods, trembling earth, and fire in the sky, a vision of a planet rising in fury, far beyond the grasp or control of humanity. Now, as we approach the midpoint of 2025, these ancient words start to echo louder against the backdrop of our modern-day crises. The Earth is changing. Weather patterns are no longer just unpredictable, they're extreme. Floods that drown entire regions, hurricanes that roar louder and strike harder, wildfires that tear across landscapes with fury, and temperatures that break records every year, and they all feel like a cry from the Earth itself. Could this be what Nostradamus was warning us about? Take a moment and ask yourself, how many signs have we already seen? Rising sea levels are not just predictions anymore, they're reality for people in cities like Jakarta and Miami, where water creeps in year after year. Prolonged droughts are turning once fertile lands into dust, threatening crops and food security. Do you remember the wildfires that scorched parts of Australia, Canada, and California? Or the heat waves that turned cities into ovens, where pavement cracked and people fell ill? These aren't distant events, they're becoming part of our daily lives. Now think about his warning of the trembling earth. We've recently witnessed devastating earthquakes in countries like Turkey and Morocco, each one a brutal reminder of how powerless we are when the ground itself turns against us. It makes one wonder, how ready are we truly? And then there's fire in the sky. What could that mean? Some interpret it literally, volcanic eruptions shooting flames and ash high into the sky, darkening the sun and choking the air. Others see it as a metaphor for solar storms, those massive bursts of energy from the sun that could disrupt satellites, black out entire power grids, and plunge modern civilization into chaos overnight. There's even talk among scientists of near-Earth asteroids, rare but not impossible. What happens if one gets too close? Are we prepared for that kind of fire? But perhaps the most unsettling part of Nostradamus's prophecy isn't just the natural events themselves, it's what comes after. Flooded farmland and parched fields mean one thing: hunger, famine. Not just in distant corners of the world, but possibly everywhere. When food becomes scarce, society teeters on the edge. Civil unrest, desperation, and conflict follow. Imagine cities submerged, nations struggling for resources, and people forced to flee their homes, not because of war, but because the earth itself has become uninhabitable. So here we are in 2025, facing a turning point. The question is no longer whether climate change is real, the evidence is all around us. The deeper question is, will we continue down this path of exploitation, or will we listen to nature, to science, maybe even to ancient warnings? Nostradamus may have written in mysterious verses, but the message is clear. The earth has power, vast, unrestrained power, and it's responding to centuries of neglect. The wisdom to take from this isn't about fear, but awareness. When we respect the earth, we live in harmony with it. When we ignore its balance, we risk everything. Ask yourself, what kind of world do we want to leave behind? Can we shift from destruction to stewardship, from greed to gratitude? Let this be our lesson today. Nature is not our enemy, but a mirror. It reflects how we treat it. And perhaps the greatest wisdom lies not in predicting the future, but in choosing a better one. If you've watched up to this point, you're already curious about what the future may hold. Comment below with Future Awakening to affirm your interest in understanding the predictions unfolding by late June 2025. Don't miss out, there's still more to uncover about what lies ahead this year. Stay with us until the end to explore the insights that could shape your path forward. Number 4. Societal collapse and revolution. The eruption of societal upheaval, a striking prediction by Nostradamus that feels eerily close to the world we find ourselves in today. When you hear the phrase eruption in urban centers, what comes to mind? Nostradamus didn't just speak in riddles, she painted emotional pictures with his words. And in this particular vision, he seemed to glimpse a time when unrest wouldn't just simmer in the background, but would explode into the very streets where we live, work, and gather. It's a warning that many interpret as a sign of mass protests, uprisings, and deep transformations that start from the heart of our societies. Let's reflect on that for a moment. Are we not already seeing the cracks in our foundations, cracks caused by inequality, corruption, and systems that no longer seem to serve the people they were built for? From Paris to Hong Kong and from Minneapolis to Tehran, the years leading up to 2025 have shown us waves of discontent. People who once felt voiceless are now raising their voices together. What used to be private frustrations have turned into public cries for justice, equality, and accountability. These aren't just protests, they're awakenings. But we must ask ourselves, why now? Why are these movements gaining such strength? Part of the answer lies in our digital world. Social media, once a place for sharing family photos and light-hearted memes, has transformed into a global amplifier for truth and resistance. A single video can spark a revolution, a tweet can hold a president accountable, and a hashtag can unite millions. Nostradamus's nascent force, rising against authority, may well be the power of digital connectedness, a force that no king, president, or prime minister can completely control. Still, with such powerful change comes the shadow of chaos. Revolutionary movements, no matter how noble, often carry pain with them. The fire Nostradamus spoke of, could it not be both literal and symbolic? Fires of anger, injustice, and destruction. We've seen city blocks set ablaze, not just by flames, but by years of pent-up frustration. And governments, trying to contain what feels uncontainable, sometimes respond with heavy hands, widening the gap between the rulers and the ruled. As the Buddha once said, hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal rule. So we must pause and ask, can these flames purify society, or will they consume us? Looking ahead to the rest of 2025, we stand at a crossroads. If this prophecy holds any truth, we are not merely witnesses to history, we are participants in a global reckoning. But here lies the real question, and I ask you sincerely, if the world you've known begins to crumble, what will you choose to build in its place? Will you react with fear or respond with compassion? Will you hide from change or help guide it? As the storm brews, will you become part of the destruction or part of the healing? When old systems fall, space opens for something new. Just as a snake sheds its skin, we must shed our past over and over again, the Buddha reminds us. So perhaps what Nostradamus saw wasn't just the end of an age, but the beginning of a new one shaped by the choices we make right now. What do you think? Are we ready for such a transformation? Number 5. China's rise and global realignment. Throughout history, seismic shifts in global power have rarely occurred without ripples of tension, uncertainty, and fear. Nostradamus, the enigmatic 16th century seer, seemed to grasp this universal truth when he penned a chilling quatrain about a crimson adversary causing the vast oceans to tremble, spreading both fear and disruption. Many contemporary scholars and observers interpret this as an allegorical reference to the modern rise of Chilean ascension, not only economic and technological, but deeply geopolitical. In today's world, China's emergence as a dominant force resonates powerfully with Nostradamus's apocalyptic tone, particularly as tensions flare in the South China Sea and over Taiwan, regions that are now potential flashpoints for major conflict. The Chinese Navy's accelerated modernization and the building of artificial islands on disputed waters have led to a scenario where diplomatic strains could easily erupt into open confrontation. This expansion has drawn the wary eyes of global powers, particularly the United States, whose military presence in the Pacific is seen as both a deterrent and a potential trigger. The trembling oceans Nostradamus mentioned can thus be seen as more than poetic flair. They echo the literal and symbolic unrest across maritime boundaries today. As the Dalai Lama wisely said, peace does not mean an absence of conflicts. Differences will always be there. Peace means solving these differences through peaceful means. That message is more vital now than ever. Meanwhile, China's economic might has grown from formidable to almost ubiquitous. Through landmark projects like the Belt and Road Initiative, China has entrenched itself in the infrastructure and economies of dozens of nations, asserting influence through commerce and capital rather than conflict alone. This aligns with Nostradamus's vision of fear spreading across the oceans because economic dependencies, though less visible than missiles and warships, can bind countries with silent but powerful chains. Furthermore, China's prowess in artificial intelligence, 5G, and global trade represents a paradigm shift in the way power is measured and exercised in the 21st century. Traditional powers like the United States and parts of Europe now find themselves recalibrating their influence in a world where dominance is no longer a given, but a contested status. The Buddha once taught, "All conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering." Likewise, nations must recognize the impermanence of supremacy and adapt with wisdom rather than fear. The challenge is whether the world's leadership can navigate these waters with the foresight and balance required to prevent Nostradamus's dark foresight from becoming historical fact. With 2025 unfolding, the question looms: are we approaching a historical inflection point where diplomacy might be outpaced by ambition? As global leaders meet, posture, and negotiate behind closed doors, the undercurrents of mistrust and strategic maneuvering continue to swell. The concern is not only about potential war, but also about a long-term redefinition of international alliances, economic systems, and regional power blocks. As individuals, it is essential to remain informed, compassionate, and not be swept away by fear or one-sided narratives. In daily life, this means being open to multiple perspectives, critically evaluating information, and remembering that, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, when you plant lettuce, if it does not grow well, you don't blame the lettuce. You look for reasons it is not doing well. In the same way, if global cooperation falters, perhaps it is time to examine the soil of mutual respect and understanding. Only through wisdom, humility, and dialogue can we hope to transform trembling oceans into calm waters once again. Number 6. The celestial threat from beyond. When you hear that phrase, it might sound like the start of a science fiction movie, but for those who study the cryptic verses of Nostradamus, it's one of the most chilling predictions he ever made. He wrote of a celestial fire descending from the sky and of the red planet Mars losing its light. Now, that might sound poetic or symbolic, but in today's world, these words take on a hauntingly real tone when we look up at the night sky and think about what's truly out there. Let's unpack what this could mean together. Many researchers believe this prophecy could be pointing to something very real and very dangerous: threats from outer space. Specifically, the kind of disasters that don't just shake a city, but could impact the entire planet. One of the most direct interpretations is an asteroid, something massive, tumbling through the void, heading straight for Earth. A celestial fire, they say, could describe the horrifying sight of a space rock entering our atmosphere at terrifying speed, burning with heat as it slices through the sky. The kind of event that could cause tsunamis, earthquakes, global fires, life-altering chaos on a level we've only seen in movies. And while scientists reassure us that nothing like this is expected in 2025, the truth is, space is vast and unpredictable. Agencies like NASA and ESA are watching the skies closely, but they also admit they haven't catalogued everything. So the risk, it's not fantasy, it's just something we've learned to live with. But Nostradamus didn't stop there. He mentioned Mars, the red planet, and its dimming light. Some believe this is a reference to humanity's grand ambitions or dreams of sending people to Mars, of building the first human colony on another world. Right now, companies like SpaceX are racing toward this vision, with plans that once sounded impossible now seeming just within reach. But what if something goes terribly wrong? What if a mission fails catastrophically, turning hope into heartbreak? The darkening of Mars could be symbolic of a failed expedition or a tragedy that shakes our confidence in venturing beyond Earth. We're reaching for the stars, but are we prepared for the risks that come with it? There's another angle, too, one grounded in science, but no less alarming. A massive solar storm, something our own sun could unleash without warning, has the power to knock out satellites, fry electronics, and plunge whole countries into darkness. If such an event occurred, we wouldn't just lose light, we'd lose communication, transportation, healthcare, systems, everything that keeps our modern world ticking. The idea of fire from the sky doesn't feel so abstract when you consider that the sun, our life-giver, can also be a source of great destruction. So what do we do with all this? Nostradamus's vision reminds us that no matter how advanced we become, we are still vulnerable. We still live on a fragile planet, exposed to forces far beyond our control. And maybe that's the point of his prophecy, not to scare us, but to wake us up, to make us more aware, more united, more prepared. Because if danger does come from the sky, whether through fire, darkness, or silence, we'll need each other more than ever. Not to panic, but to face it together. If you're still watching, you're already tuned in to the mysteries that could shape our world in 2025. Comment "Prophecy Unfolding" below if you're ready to explore what these ancient predictions might mean for today. Keep watching, what's coming next might surprise you. Number 7. Crisis in the British Monarchy. Among the many cryptic quatrains penned by Nostradamus, one continues to echo with increasing relevance. A king of the Isles will face tribulation, yielding to one without royal mark. This enigmatic line has captivated those interested in historical prophecy, particularly as it seems to mirror present uncertainties surrounding the British monarchy. With King Charles III now in his mid-70s and having assumed the throne during a period of national change and global reflection, many are watching his reign with a mix of curiosity and concern. From the outset, his leadership has been met with cautious hope, but also lingering doubt, as questions about his long-term health and ability to maintain a strong connection with a modernizing public continue to surface. The phrase, "facing tribulation," could very well be a metaphor for the internal and external pressures he navigates, ranging from physical health to shifting public opinion, especially in a world that increasingly values transparency and democratic ideals over hereditary entitlement. This brings us to the second half of the prophecy, which many find even more thought-provoking: yielding to one without royal mark. The ambiguity of this line invites speculation, drawing interest from both traditionalists and modern observers alike. Could this refer to Prince William, a figure often seen as the stabilizing next chapter of the royal lineage? Or, more intriguingly, might it point to Prince Harry, whose departure from royal duties and outspoken stance on various issues once seemed to sever his future ties with the crown? Despite this, his continued presence on the world stage and frequent returns to the UK suggest he has not entirely stepped away from influence. Some even propose that his unconventional path, far removed from royal protocol, might represent the very break from tradition that this prophecy hints at, a transition from formal title to meaningful leadership, earned, not inherited. Still, one must consider a broader interpretation, that the phrase could foreshadow the fading relevance of monarchy altogether. In recent years, calls for reformer, even the dissolution of the monarchy, have gained traction, especially among younger generations who view inherited privilege with increasing skepticism. As economic pressures mount and national identity continues to evolve post-Brexit, the royal institution faces questions not just about who leads it, but why it persists. If King Charles were to step down due to illness, or if a sudden event were to force a change in leadership, the ripple effect could be profound, igniting a public conversation that extends far beyond palace walls. The monarchy, once a symbol of stability, may now be seen by some as a relic, struggling to justify its place in a society moving toward meritocracy and representation. The strength of Nostradamus's words lies in their ability to reflect both literal and symbolic truths. While it is impossible to predict events with certainty, his vision invites us to examine our own beliefs about leadership, heritage, and change. Whether we witness a quiet transition of power, a surprising return of a wayward prince, or a national reckoning with the monarchy itself, the potential for upheaval in 2025 feels more tangible than ever. And so, as this year unfolds, it's worth asking ourselves, what kind of leadership do we truly value in today's world? Are we holding on to traditions out of reverence or out of habit? These reflections are not just for scholars or royal watchers, They're for anyone interested in how we shape the future. Because as one chapter closes, another opens sand. The responsibility of what comes next rests not just with the crown, but with all of us. Number 8. The Catholic Church at a crossroads. Nostradamus often pointed his prophecies toward powerful institutions facing critical turning points, and one such vision speaks directly to the heart of the Catholic Church, a pillar of spiritual life for over 1 billion people. In one of his most debated quatrains, he foretells the passing of an elderly pontiff, followed by the rise of another leader also advanced in age, who will see the Church's influence wane during his time in power. This haunting image has many people today looking closely at the current state of the Vatican. As of 2025, Pope Francis, at 87, is navigating both the natural struggles of aging and the increasing weight of global expectations. His absence from the recent United Nations Climate Summit due to persistent lung issues sparked a new wave of concern over his health and the future leadership of the Church. Given his record marked by efforts to modernize doctrine, advocate for the poor, and call attention to global issues, Pope Francis has certainly made his mark, but not without drawing controversy and facing resistance from more traditional sectors within the institution. So when we look at Nostradamus's words, we have to ask ourselves, is this the crossroads the Church has been slowly approaching? The prophecy goes further, hinting that the next pontiff may be an elderly Roman who, though assuming the papacy, will face profound challenges and may not be able to sustain the Church's long-standing global influence. What kind of challenges might those be? Could they come from within a growing divide between progressive and conservative factions, or from outside, in the form of an increasingly secular world where younger generations are turning away from organized religion? Membership in the Church is already declining in many Western countries, and scandals involving abuse, finances, and perceived resistance to social change have damaged its credibility. Even deeply faithful individuals are questioning the institution's place in their spiritual lives, and these shifts are not happening quietly. They're reshaping the very fabric of religious identity around the world. If 2025 becomes the year where the Catholic Church reaches a breaking point, whether due to health transitions, internal division, or public backlash, then we must consider what could rise in its place. Will people seek spirituality in more personal, decentralized ways? Will new movements emerge that speak more clearly to today's values of inclusion, compassion, and truth? Or will the Church respond by evolving, truly listening, and reforming to remain a relevant moral compass in a world hungry for meaning? These are not just abstract questions for theologians or historians, they're questions for you. What does faith mean to you in this moment? Is it tied to an institution, or does it live in the actions and intentions you carry each day? As we reflect on this prophecy, one powerful lesson stands out. Even the most ancient and revered institutions must grow or risk fading into irrelevance. Change, though unsettling, can also be an invitation to return to the core of any belief system: compassion, honesty, and service to others. And so, the crossroads we see may not be the end, but a call to return to something deeper than doctrine. In the face of uncertainty, may we all strive to embody the values that lift humanity up, regardless of the names or structures we've long held sacred. Number 9. The fulfilled rise of Donald Trump. Let's talk about something that's caught the attention of both historians and casual observers: a Lycian, eerie alignment between centuries-old prophecy and today's headlines. You might have heard of Nostradamus, the 16th century seer, whose cryptic verses continue to stir debate even in our modern world. Among his many mysterious quatrains, one in particular has long fascinated scholars and believers, a prophecy that seems to foreshadow the rise of a controversial and commanding leader, someone who challenges the norms, reshapes the political order, and stirs intense division. And now, with recent developments in 2025, that ancient prediction is gaining renewed attention because many see it as pointing directly to the return of Donald Trump, now officially the 47th President of the United States. Now, let's break this down in a way that speaks directly to you. For years, people speculated about Nostradamus's reference to a fiery-tongued figure who would ascend to power not once, but with a thunderous return that would shake the foundations of both domestic and global stability. Trump's first rise in 2016 was already viewed as unprecedented, marked by sharp rhetoric, sweeping executive decisions, and an unrelenting ability to dominate the public discourse. But in 2025, his comeback isn't just a political twist, it's something that many interpret as the actualization of a centuries-old warning. His re-emergence has reignited not only debates in the halls of government, but also stirred fears, hopes, and divisions among everyday people like you and me. Nostradamus wrote of a leader who speaks with unwavering conviction, someone who resists tradition and carves his own path, causing both admiration and intense backlash. When you look at Trump's approach to leadership, both in his past term and now, there's a clear echo of that description. Whether it's his stance on immigration, trade, or foreign alliances, he's not someone who moves quietly or carefully. Instead, he barrels forward, reshaping institutions and often forcing nations to respond in kind. In this sense, he doesn't just lead a country, he shifts the entire conversation of global power. But the prophecy doesn't stop at the individual. It speaks of what surrounds him: growing social unrest, ideological clashes, and a world that feels increasingly fractured. Look around today. Protests flare up in cities across the globe, online discourse is more divided than ever, and many feel like the fabric holding societies together is wearing thin. Trump's renewed leadership, seen by some as a spark for reform and by others as a catalyst for chaos, sits right in the center of this whirlwind. His presence seems to amplify the very conditions Nostradamus described: economic strain, rising extremism, and heightened global tensions. It's important to point out that Nostradamus didn't name Trump outright. These verses were always shrouded in poetic ambiguity. But when people compare the essence of his prophecy to what we're witnessing in real time, it's hard to ignore the parallels. We're watching not just the continuation of a political saga, but something that feels larger, more symbolic, a kind of historic loop that begs us to ask deeper questions about where we're heading. So where does that leave us, as individuals living through this moment? Some say Trump represents strength and clarity in uncertain times, a leader unafraid to make difficult calls. Others see him as a sign that we're moving deeper into polarization and instability. Both views may hold truth, and that's what makes this unfolding story so compelling and so unsettling. Whether you're a firm believer in prophecy or just someone observing the state of the world with open eyes, one thing's clear: what's happening now isn't just politics. It's part of a larger narrative, and it challenges us all to consider how we respond, how we engage, and how we prepare for what might lie ahead. And so, as we reflect on the chilling accuracy and symbolic depth of Nostradamus's visions, we are reminded that prophecy is not fate, is an invitation to awareness. Whether his words serve as warning or mirror, the real power lies in how we respond. If you found this journey thought-provoking, please support the Journey of Wisdom by liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing to our channel. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming episodes as we continue to explore ancient insights and modern truths. Until next time, stay mindful, stay compassionate, and walk with wisdom.